Yeah, Mixtape Volume 3.
So ReadMe traditionally is great for public APIs. We have thousands of companies that use ReadMe for their public APIs, but most companies only have one public API, or two or three, but not a ton. A lot of companies have thousands and thousands of internal APIs, and ReadMe is not great for that. The experience of ReadMe is great for the API stuff itself, but it's really clunky to manage thousands of APIs using ReadMe. So we've built ReadMe Micro, and Dave's gonna give us a quick demo of it.
Hey everybody, I'm Dave, and I'm gonna do a demo of ReadMe Micro. So as Greg mentioned, engineering leaders and engineering teams often tell us, hey, this is great for our public API and our partner API, but we have all these internal services we have no documentation for. Can you help us out? And we usually say, not really. We're best for your public APIs. So we've built ReadMe Micro just to tackle that problem that engineering teams face at software companies. Currently, we support Bitbucket and GitHub, but for this demo, I'm gonna log in via GitHub. We kept permissions really light. We only asked for your email address and the ability to star. We wanted to sit on top of GitHub without access to your code. So one thing our customers told us is they do not want to give a documentation app read and write access to their repos. So we built this so that you can push OAS files and Markdown files from your repos to us to keep security and privacy standards at your organization. Setup takes a couple more steps, but I mean, I'm just a sales guy and I can set it up, so it's still not very hard. So I'm logged in. I can see that I belong to two organizations, which this mirrors GitHub. We wanted to mirror the structure and user permissions of GitHub as much as possible, so you don't have to maintain access control in a new system outside of GitHub for your engineers. If a user has access to it in GitHub or Bitbucket, they'll have access to it in Micro. We'll have GitLab support in the next couple months here. So I'm gonna click into my first organization. And as you can see, I can see all of my services here in one page. So you can think of this as a catalog or a service discovery page, but it's one place to see all your internal APIs. I'll have the ability to filter those, search by name. I'm gonna find our API Mixtape repo here. When I click into it, I can see that it's not set up yet. So first I'm gonna go into the repo itself on GitHub and add a OAS file and commit it. You can get the OAS file however you want. Some people write it directly in GitHub while others auto-generate it into the repo. As long as it's in GitHub or Bitbucket somehow, we can read it. Now that we have an OAS file, we can go back to Micro and set up the GitHub action. All I have to do is copy the action, click the green button, add it to GitHub, paste it in and commit it. This will kick off the GitHub action, which will build the OAS file and send it over. Going forward, every time you change the OAS file, it'll be uploaded into ReadMe Micro. I can go back to ReadMe Micro. I can see my OAS file. There's also a space at the top here where you can add Markdown, and we'll get back to that in a minute. But if I click into my API, I get a very similar UI to ReadMe itself. So I can see my OAS file that was synced in, and I can see that everything is rendered nicely for my OAS file. It's the exact same UI that powers ReadMe. So the power of that 3-column reference section that we spent years building, you can now take that and skin your internal services with it. Back to the main page of this repo, I'm gonna click micro.md and add some text here. This is information about the API that anybody can see. While Micro is great at rendering out OAS files, there's a lot of other information that people have told us that they want to include. Typically, they couple Markdown files with those OAS files, or they'll use Markdown files in place of, for APIs that maybe don't have an OAS file, or maybe isn't a REST API at all. You can sync those Markdown files in as well. Now, when I go back to Micro, I hit refresh, the content will be rendered. The last thing I want to show you is the changelog. One of the major use cases of ReadMe Micro is the ability to see what's changed and to view the old versions of your services. So I'm gonna go back to GitHub and make a change to my OAS file. I'll add an exclamation mark, make a field required. I'm gonna change the type from 32 to 64, and then I'm gonna commit the change and wait for it to build. Now back in ReadMe Micro, you can see the changes I just made. It outlines the differences, who made them, and what happened. This lets you have a running diff of what's changing in your API. So that's ReadMe Micro. If you have any other questions, feel free to find me, and I'd be happy to talk about it. And there's a QR code on the back of your badge. If you scan that, you'll be able to try any of these products that we've just shown here.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
All right, I had Dave demo that because I think he's probably asked me when we're going to build that every single day for the past, 5-6 years at this point, because a lot of people have wanted it, so super excited to have that out now as well. Okay, that's what we have for the first half. We're going to have a, I think, 15 or so minute break, and then we'll be back here. There's coffee and stuff out there. Bathrooms are in the back, and I'll be mingling and everything, but see you all in a few minutes.
API, Mixtape Volume 3. Woo! Let's go.